Hello and welcome everybody. We are back here for match 5, and honestly, I probably shouldn't be playing this match right now because I have to head out to a in-paper tournament in about 40 minutes-ish, but I'm trying to squeeze this one in for you guys, so I'm just gonna go ahead and skip all the talking. If you are interested in the deck list, go ahead and check out match 1. That's where you'll find it, but for now, let's just go ahead and jump straight into this final match. Unfortunately, we are currently 1-3, so we're fighting for the chance to get half of our league value back. If you go 2-3, you get 50 play points, is what they're called on Magic Online, and it takes 100 play points to enter a league. So even with a record like 2-3, you can still at least get half your value back, and that's what we're fighting for here. I'm also partially playing this particular match today because I'm not sure what deck I want to play in the paper tournament later. I have the option to play either Amulet. I currently have the 3 Talari West version of Amulet built up, with the exception of it has a Uro in the sideboard instead of the second tracker, because I have that in paper, but not online. So I have the ability to play that, or I could play Bant Snow, which is a deck that I have actually never played before. The only thing that was holding me back was, ironically, Uro. I had like 1 or 2 copies. I think it was 1 initially, and I was able to eventually grab some more copies in paper, but now I have all 3, I'm very inclined to play that deck. But, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling Amulet today, so this hand is going to be a mulligan, I think. Was missing a Titan, missing some lands. It had Dryad and some untapped sources, which is not bad, but I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. This hand, on the other hand, has all the non-Simic Growth Chamber bounce lands, save for the Boros Garrison, thank goodness. But I still think I like it better. We can definitely bottom a Redundant Sanctuary. We're a little slow here. We want to get this Grazer out as fast as possible, but that's not really going to be super at our disposal here, I guess. If we happen to top deck a green source, we can, if we top deck a forest, we can put it in the Grazer using the forest and get one of these bounce lands out. Potentially have the ability to play a Dryad. That would be the idea, at least. So instead, we're just running out our colors here. I'm playing up the Selesnya Sanctuary over the Gruul Turf because in combination with this Valakut, it has the ability to give us the red and white that we might need to haste our Titan or double strike. So I'm anticipating playing out this Valakut again somewhat soon. So depending on what they Misty Rainforest here, we might Vesuva to copy their land, because I'd rather have more lands in play than just copy another Sanctuary here, I think. So we'll see. I'm not totally opposed to just copying their Misty Rainforest either, to be honest. Don't really want to have to do that necessarily, but that's a land I would definitely want to copy. Call it now. Are they going to interact with my 1-mana Arboreal Grazer? I doubt it. Snap Resolves. Love to see it. Let's go ahead and Vesuva this breeding pool, I think. And we will not pay the life because it'll be tapped anyways. Having drawn the Garrison is a little unfortunate here, but we don't have an Amulet going anyway, so we weren't going to be able to haste in the first place. So I'll just play out the Valakut and pass it back. Admittedly, this hand was quite a bit slow. If we top decked a 3rd land, I could definitely have seen a line for Summoner's Pacting for Azusa. But we did not find a untapped land. Of course, the Vesuva entering tapped regardless of what it copies, so. And another Bant matchup. Ugh. Terrible luck. Terrible luck. They're just slamming Uro here. So if we top deck a Garenbrig, we kind of get him, but I mean, that's what we would have to top deck. Not impossible. We do play 4, so top decking Garenbrig would be the ideal case scenario here. I mean, they still are holding up Path to Exile, which is not ideal, but second Vesuva's not my favorite draw. I think we're just going to be playing out our probably Azusa here, or we could Summoner's Pact for a Dryad. I don't mind that. Interesting. Let's go ahead and play out the Gruul Turf, I suppose, so that we have additional green sources. We'll pick up the Valakut, I think. And we're going to go ahead and pack for Dryad. I think this is going to be the best line. Because we're not going to just jam a Primeval Titan this upcoming turn. That doesn't seem particularly prudent. I think Dryad is going to be the best since it also represents an additional threat. Especially since we already have Valakut in hand. So, and then here, I'm going to go ahead and play Vesuva, copying, again, I guess, Breeding Pool. That way we have plenty of protection against, like, Field of Ruin or something. So, no attacks. No need. We don't have time for memeing around today, guys. I'm on that time crunch, you know? I mean, if we could just kindly get them to tap out again here, that would be... I mean, I wouldn't mind that. No way we can play around something like a Mana Leak, though, sadly. It's possible... Nah, I was going to say it's possible we should have kept a Vesuva to copy this Valakut, but... We'll see. There's no way we could have been going into this turn with 6 lands hitting the battlefield anyways if we had gone with that line. Being able to Bajuka Bog this graveyard would be fantastic, though. Just being honest. We'll go ahead and tap like this, so if we... I mean, we're not really going to be able to transmute to Talari West because we have no untapped source, but that doesn't really make a difference. Let's be honest, these 2 lands are any color that we want anyways from this Dryad, so... And there is the Talari West. Mana short on that one, but this will help us get a Cavern of Souls, which I definitely like. Don't know if I want to expose the Valakut here. I think we don't really have a great choice. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and play it out. And we'll Garrison here. And we'll just go ahead and Valakut their face. Take it. Oh, I should have always yesed this guy. And then we'll pick up a Vesuva, I suppose, so that if they don't have the Field of Ruin, we can keep our Valakuts permanently, but we gotta get into play anyways. I'm not attacking into Snake, so no reason to get Ice Fang cowaddled here. I will say, this is the last matchup I wanted to play against on a time crunch. If they get back Uro here, I think I'm totally fine with that. They exile their yard and pay 4 mana to tap out to do so, and then we just play a Vesuva copying this Valakut and blow it out. Although they can totally see that coming, considering they know we picked up the Vesuva, but if they were to go for that line, that would be great for us. So I would be surprised to see that. Fairy Hero. Interesting. And they upticked. Not really very surprising there. Holding up Cryptic Command. Quite annoying. And they also have Path plus Archmage's Charm available. Yeah, that's very annoying. Yeah, we'll get a regular Basic Forest here, so that if they happen to get a Snow Basic Forest out, we can copy that. And now we don't have the ability to transmute our Talari West, because this Vesuva copying the Breeding Pool would have been our second blue source. So that's quite annoying. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. So we're 1 short of playing around Mana Leak as well. Shame. 6, 7, 8, yeah. Can't do that. I don't really love letting them untap with this Teferi at all, though. I think I want to force them to have it. If this Titan resolves, then we are going to be able to Bajuka Bog their graveyard, and if not, we'll probably have a Growth Chamber in play, so... I'm just going to go ahead and jam it, I think. I guess if it resolves, we might want to be able to haste it. Probably not, though, because they could have Snap Path or just another Path to Exile, so I'm not going to tap my mana in any certain kind of way to play around that. This is not resolving. In that case, we'll play our Growth Chamber and pick up, I guess, Basic Forest. Or maybe the Valakut to protect it. I think maybe picking up Valakut to protect it is going to be the best line. It looks like they do have the Archmage's Charm, sadly. No mainboard Veil of Summers from me. Main board Mystical Dispute? Alright, alright. Well, like I said, we couldn't have played around Mana Leak anyways. So here's a Growth Chamber. And we will pick up the Valakut, I think. No reason to expose that one to field. I don't know. Maybe it was just impatient enough not to... We'll just wait till we can transmute for a Cavern. We'll see. We might have to transmute for a haste land now. The Slayer Stronghold. So we can clock the Teferi with this Arboreal Grazer. Not feeling like the strongest option. Not gonna lie. If they play an Uro here and just kind of tap out to go ham, thinking that we've exhausted our only Titan, then we'll get them by being able to transmute this Tolarios that they don't know about. I mean, if they just play Uro and then pass with 5 mana, like, that'll be rough. I mean, let's be honest though, everything in their deck is like instant speed except for Astrolabe and the big walkers and stuff. So, like, if they have any kind of interaction like Cryptic Command or Mana Leak or Dovin's Veto or Force of Negation or whatever, they're just going to pass and not use their mana, so it's pretty likely that they just don't do anything else here. Yeah, I guess I should have just waited to transmute for the Cavern. I just felt like that was waiting too long, but I didn't consider the fact that I could transmute for Cavern and then play the Titan this upcoming turn all in the same turn if I played the Growth Chamber, so... If our Titan doesn't resolve this upcoming turn, I'm going to go ahead and concede. Because we're not going to beat this board state. We probably can't beat it even if we resolve a Titan at the moment, but we'll see. Sunhome. Yep, that one's not quite going to do it. So we'll transmute, and I guess we have to get a Summoner's Pact now. They could have any of a billion things that interact with a Summoner's Pact, but that's now or never, so... There's a pause here, which makes me think that the counterspell is coming. Maybe not, though. Maybe they just didn't expect me to go for it again, I don't know. I saw on, what's the guy's name? Doomswitch. Don't know why I would have forgot his name. We could get a Fierce Empath here. I don't know if that's going to be the line. Probably not. But I was going to say, I saw on Doomswitch's sideboard guide for Bant that he sideboards out one Force of Negation in the Amulet Titan matchup, which is just crazy to me. I've always felt like Force of Negation was quite solid against the Amulet from both sides. Alright, yeah, we're done here. But yeah, like, Force of Negation being able to hit our packs, both Pact of Negation and Summoner's Pact, and also being able to hit things like Mystical Dispute or something, or Amulet itself. Although hitting Amulet is not always the best plan, but those kinds of things. I always felt that Force of Negation was quite strong. So I'm going to go without the Baloths this time, because I think that maybe them trading with an Icefang Quaddle is too problematic. Maybe then I don't want the second explosives. Probably not. If we're not trying to win on the board that way anyways, no big deal. Dismember is not going to really be relevant. We can trim 2 packs because they usually play a couple Ashiok. Let's see what else. We can trim Stirrings for sure. Possibly an Amulet even. I like trimming an Amulet. What else? We could trim an Empath because they're weak to Ashiok. I gotta cut one more. It could just be the last explosives, but I do like having one against Ice Fangs. Maybe that's not the best plan, though. What else? Let's trim one Bounce Land, since they're weak to Field of Ruin, I suppose. And we'll go like this. I apologize if I'm being a little hasty today. Is this really the third blue-white-green opponent that we are facing? Bant Snow? Pretty crazy. Because up until this particular league, I haven't faced Bant Snow, I think, in any of the leagues I've played, which is pretty amazing, to be honest, considering Bant Snow is probably one of the like #1 decks in the format. I would say, if not the best deck in the format. So it's pretty crazy that I have not yet faced it, but facing it all in this league has not been particularly great for the testing of this particular deck list, because I think that any kind of Amulet Titan strategy is going to be a little bit of a dog to the control deck. Specifically, Bant Snow, at least. About this hand, I think it's missing a Titan, but Dryad can be particularly good against them. Doesn't have an Amulet, but it has several untapped sources as well. And a Beast Within to answer Ashiok, which is important. I guess I'll keep it. Doesn't quite have a plan yet, though, but we'll get there, I suppose. Go ahead and play out this Breeding Pool. Our opponent's probably relieved to see no turn 1 Amulet. Don't want to play out the bounce land just yet. I'm going to go ahead and play the Vesuva, I think. It's a little worse if we're trying to set up a Feel the Dead type line, but it's going to be better if we happen to top deck like a Tolarios or something. Just getting their land and passing back seems reasonable. Cavern's a great draw there, because now we can force through a Dryad instead of having to worry about the mana leak. Every time they've had the mana leak, it's been devastating. So, definitely like to see that. I guess we'll play out the Dryad. I didn't consider whether it was better to play Dryad or Azusa, but, I mean, come on, look at this card. Have you ever seen the art of this card? How can you possibly resist that? Still don't want to play out the Boros Garrison, I think. So let's get this Snow Forest in play, I guess. We'll pass back. Of course, holding on to the Garenbrig here because we don't want to show them that we have Titan mana already lined up. And we can actually use Boros Garrison to pick up and replay this Cavern on Giant. So that should be pretty useful. I wonder what creature type's Fierce Empath is. We have one in our sideboard because we sided one out. They kept into Fairy. That's interesting. I don't think I mind that. That was risky, too, because if we just went Garenbrig into Titan, they had nothing they could really do about it. So, that was a sneaky little play on their side. I think I'm just recasting... Well, hold on. We know that this Dryad is definitely going to resolve whenever we cast it because of the Cavern. Unless they happen to have a Field of Ruin, but then they'll only be holding up 2 mana anyways. I think I want to get the Azusa into play now, actually. He's fine. And then we'll play Castle. We'll play Garrison. And we'll pick up our Cavern. We could actually play Dryad this turn also. But then we don't get to name Giant. Although they can't actually counter the Dryad this turn, so it's fine to go ahead and put this on... That's not how you spell Giant. On Giant, and then just pay the full mana value for our board state here, instead of just the uncounterable one. And we'll pass it back. This is why Time Raveler is not particularly good against our deck, is because as soon as these creatures come into play, they already do their job by getting an extra land into play. Like, that is significantly worse than just pathing our Dryad, for example. Because now what are they going to do? Play a land and tap out to Supreme Verdict away their Coatl and my 2 creatures, and then let me have free reign to play another Titan again? Yeah, I don't know if that's the best move. If they play something that can get them a Snowland here, I am not willing to trade my Dryad to get a point of damage through on this Teferi. Likewise, I'm not going to attack into 2 open mana for a second Ice Fang Coatl, because that would be pretty dumb. Each Ice Fang Coatl obviously seeing each other for the Snow permanent requirement, or they just have an Astrolabe and that does it too. I mean, if we find a Talari West here, I could, well, I was going to say I could see just getting Valakut, but we have a Beast Within for that one. I don't know if it's worth Beast Withining their Ice Fang. Probably not. That seems stupid. Yeah, we'll get rid of this Ashiok, I guess. If they have Force of Negation, it could be problematic, but... Well, there's the Force of Negation. They pitched a 5-mana Teferi, though. That doesn't feel too bad. We'll play out one of these Grazers, I suppose, so that if we top deck a Stronghold, we can get a little frisky. Unfortunately, no lands here. And as much as I hate to say it, I think we have to start trading our board to clock this Ashiok. It's just too important. So... we also are going to get our Cavernous Souls Fuel of Ruined if they so decide. Not the best outcome for us. I don't know, maybe this was not the right type of hand to keep in a matchup like this. Seeing a second Teferi is not terribly surprising. I think that's one of the main reasons they would exile the first Teferi, is because they were flooded on them. Like I said, this guy kind of just puts away the game, so... Explore. I will take that, I suppose. I don't think this is the way I want to tap it. If we can play Titan this turn, it might be wise to. It plays into a Mana Leak or a Disdainful Stroke or something along those lines, but can't really do much about it. On the other hand, Explosives on 3 seems pretty decent. Getting rid of the Ashiok and the small Teferi is reasonable. We're still just going to lose to this big Teferi, but it's not like we can get Explosives on 5. I'm going to go ahead and swing into the Ashiok with the Azusa, so that if they happen to play a Ice Fang Coatl using their Astrolabe, then not only do we get to keep our 3 off of the battlefield, and they don't do that, then we would be able to get full value from Explosives by just destroying their permanents. That said, I think I'm still going to go ahead and play out this EE. Can't pass and give them access to Cryptic Mana or something like that. They'd have to have like a Veto or Force of Negation or a Mana Leak here in order to counter this. Which are cards that they could have, but definitely going to blow it now so they can't bounce their own Astrolabe with Teferi and get value out of it before it dies. So, sucks to kill our own Azusa here, but I think we're going to benefit from the ability to get a Titan into play, if that is what occurs. Although, again, like I said, we can't really play around counter magic here because the Field of Ruin is just going to hit our Cavern, so... not looking great. Bro. I hope they don't have a land, but they will. Yep. I mean, admittedly though, if they go for the Field of Ruin, I guess they could hold up Archmage's Charm. So... we could potentially go for a Carnage Tyrant instead, and then they can't Teferi Tuck that either. If we draw a Field of the Dead, we also don't have the requisite land names. We would have 6 with the field, since we have a breeding pool here, so... or a redundant breeding pool, I should say. Rough spot. Them getting back the Uro here is pretty interesting to me. If we top deck a Titan, we might be in decent shape now, considering they have to Field of Ruin this Cavern before they can interact with it, so... Vesuva. That's a good one. Well, now we have backup in the case that they do field. And I'm going to go ahead and play out the second Grazer here as well. They know it's not a relevant card, because otherwise we would have played it, most likely. And this way we can chump block the Uro, while also being able to potentially clock the Teferi with the Arboreal Grazer. again, assuming that we draw Slayer Stronghold. I don't think it's going to be particularly relevant if we have 1 or 2 grazers in play. I'm going to go ahead and block, because if we were to get a Titan into play and, say, get a Field of the Dead going, they might be inclined to use Supreme Verdict, even though it kills their own Uro, to deal with the board, so it's a slim chance. But that's the reason, I suppose. It also might have been relevant to Vesuva their Field of Ruin to force them to field the Cavern instead of, say, a Field of the Dead. But then we don't have a way of actually resolving a Titan for sure, so... Bajuka Bog. Turn late on that one, bud. Turn late. Alright, well, I could potentially play this out, but I don't see a reason to. We can't search with like a Summoner's Pact or a Talari West or the Fierce Empath. We can't really beat these 2 Planeswalkers on board, and they still have Uro going, so I'm going to go ahead and scoop it up here. Unfortunately. Well, I can't say that the league turned out the way I would have hoped it would. We ended up 1 and 4 here. So let's talk a little bit, since I do have the time, about this particular deck list. So first of all, the elephant in the room that I want to address is these 2 cards right here. Carnage Tyrant and Elder Scale Worm. So here's my thoughts on these 2 cards. Neither of them does quite enough. I think Elder Scale Worm is actually the better of the 2, having played Carnage Tyrant a few times. I mean, we never got an Elder Scale Worm into play, but presumably against humans or burn or prowess, the Elder Scale Worm does exactly what you want it to do, right? Let me go ahead and give you all the larger image of this card so you can read it in case you're not familiar. This card seems like exactly what you would want against, say, prowess or burn. Like, it is possible for them to double bolt and lava dart the Elder Scale Worm or something like that, but if they do that, or like if let's say that I block a Swift Spear with it and they bolt and lava dart the worm and then deal lethal damage to the Elder Scale Worm with their Monastery Swift Spear, even in a case like that where they're spending several cards and the Elder Scale Worm dies, that's a totally fine trade, because then your Elder Scale Worm just 3-for-1 or maybe more than that your opponent, and that's its floor, right? And those matchups, its ceiling is you never block with it, never attack with it. They can never get through it because they'd have to draw several, effects that can actually target a creature, like Bolt and Skewer the Critics and Lava Dart. I think those are like the only real ones that do it. I mean, if they don't have that combination of cards, and you never block with it and never attack with it, they actually just can't remove the Elder Scale Worm. So I actually think this card is the better of the pair in the sideboard, if you were to play an effect like this. Carnage Tyrant, we saw several times that sometimes getting the Carnage Tyrant, if you already have a Titan, is just overkill, because, I mean, Titan's really what you need in play to win the game. Like, as soon as you have a Titan in play and can force it through, then you're going to be golden, right? If you're not at the point where you can cast a Titan, it's usually going to be against those, like, Bant control decks or other control decks where giving them a turn to answer Carnage Tyrant, a lot of those decks can do it, like, especially the ones playing Supreme Verdict, right? If it also plays really, unfortunately, into the cryptic tap your team, bounce Mystic Sanctuary loop. And that's definitely a problem. And playing a Carnage Tyrant is not necessarily going to win you the game. In fact, you might be better off having just searched for a Primeval Titan in those scenarios. So, my personal opinion on these 2 cards is, if you want to play anything like this, like an additional bullet to look for with your Fierce Empaths, I would say it's Elder Scale Worm or nothing. Maybe you would want to play Worldbreaker. Maybe. I don't know even on that one. I feel like that one's a stretch, because that effect is not worth 7 mana in my opinion. That said, you can bring it back from your graveyard by, paying 3 mana and sacrificing land, I think. So, like, the effect of a World Breaker, which is, killing an artifact, enchantment, or land on cast, right? So it's going to do something as soon as you put it on the stack that is pretty much uninteractable. So that's valuable, but at 7 mana, I don't think that's really what you want to be doing either. So my opinion is if you're playing Fierce Empath, cut the toolboxy cards, because they're not good enough to win games, I think. The Elder Scale Worm, like I said, might be, but that's the only one I would play, right? Secondly is, if you're playing Fierce Empaths, do not play this many copies. I mean, we saw it several times where my opponent plays an Ashiok and my top deck, Fierce Empath. Awful. Really terrible. Really, really bad. Even in those cases where the Fierce Empath does what it does and searches for a Primeval Titan, which is the ideal case, paying 3 mana for a 1/1 is terrible, right? You might think, oh, well, Amulet is a deck that plays Tolaria West, right? And that's 3 mana for nothing. But the difference between Tolaria West and Fierce Empath is Empath finds one thing and one thing only, and that is Primeval Titan, right? Or a mediocre sideboard card. And Tolaria West does the complete opposite. It can find almost anything that is important in this deck, right? You can use it to find a Summoner's Pact to find Titan. You can use it to find a Pact Negation if you choose to play that in order to protect your Titan or prevent yourself from losing to like a game-winning spell. You can find Engineered Explosives. You can find Valakut. You can find Cavern of Souls, Bojuka Bog, or I don't want to cut Bojuka Bog. Here it is. You can find Bojuka Bog. You can find a bounce land. There are several times where, Tolaria Westing for a bounce land has been the correct play. It's like maybe once every 15 games-ish, I would say, with my limited experience. I personally, and that's also why I'm thinking about playing the 3 Tolaria West list today at the in-person tournament, is because this does not give you any flexibility. I definitely would not play any more than 2 copies of Fierce Empath, for sure. In fact, my inclination, sadly, is to play none. Just because you can get that same effect and a lot more versatility, a lot more play against, say, humans and whatnot by playing an additional Tolaria West. And the fail case for Tolaria West against, like, an Ashiok is putting land into play to help you scale into a later game, even if you can't actually, like, search, right? And if you can Tolaria West underneath an Ashiok, or if you can attack the Ashiok dead and then Tolaria West, then it does what Tolaria West usually does, right? So, I personally must say I'm not impressed by Fierce Empath at all. That said, I know that F. Paulus has been having some success playing Fierce Empath. I agree with his list that you shouldn't play any kind of sideboard bullets for it. You shouldn't play more than 2 copies. I think if I was going to play Fierce Empath, I would play 1, maybe 2, to see if the card is worth having 2 of, and to make sure that you're able to see it frequently in testing. See it in your opening hand to make sure you get to a Titan. But like I said, my personal preference is to play 3 Tolaria West. But again, take that with a grain of salt. My personal preference is also to play 2 Vesuvas, and I would say there's probably not a single person on this planet other than myself playing 2 Vesuvas, so you know what I mean. So I think moving forward and testing for Amulet, I'm going to continue to play either the 3 Tolaria West list, or maybe mess around with some numbers like on Ancient Stirrings and Azusa and whatnot, but I actually think that just kind of a stock, quote-unquote, Amulet list with, Primeval Titans, but no, like, Karn the Great Creators. I haven't tested Karn personally, but I would think that just playing a straightforward list with Ancient Stirrings is going to be more than fine in order to give you the record that you're looking for. I've definitely had the most success with just really straightforward lists. So, no surprise there. Now, this is kind of a cardinal sin to myself, but I'm going to say this out loud, and I might come to regret it. I could see trimming the second Vesuva for a single gemstone mine. There's several times where being able to transmute the 3rd Tolaria West was problematic, because we really only have Breeding Pool and Simic Growth Chamber in order to do so. Trying to keep a Dryad in play in order to transmute Tolaria West that's limited success rate, in my opinion. There are some decks where it's pretty much unfeasible entirely against the Bant control decks. That's a great example. You play a Dryad, it's probably going to get pathed or like bounced or countered or whatever, and it's not going to resolve, and then you're going to have this Tolaria West stranded in your hand. So I think playing a single Gemstone Mine might be a good move. You can also do some very tech things with Gemstone Mine in combination with an amulet in order to... It's kind of like the Crumbling Vestige effect, where you can get Gemstone Mine if you have a red or white mana floating already when you cast your Titan in order to prevent yourself from picking up a land. But the difference is you can do that without a Dryad in play, just because that's what Gemstone Mine does. It's also an untapped source for Grazers or Amulets or Ancient Stirrings or whatever. Or for playing a 3-drop on turn 2 or 3 or whatever. So Gemstone Mine has definitely been a card that I like. One other thing I guess I should address for sure is the lack of counter magic in the sideboard. After having tested something like the Carnage Tyrant, I can very strongly say I think the best way to fight the Bant matchup is to fight on their axis. And that means being able to protect your spells on the stack is quite relevant. So there are 2 possibilities for that particular type of effect. One of them is, I guess there's really 3, but I guess the 2 general possibilities are counterspells, such as Negate or Mystical Dispute, or, I mean, even Dispel, perhaps. Anything along those, particular types of cards is going to fight that axis. And then the other card that comes to mind, and should come to mind to anybody who's playing green in Modern right now, is Veil of Summer. A card that I've not been particularly impressed with in Amulet in the past, but I'm willing to give it a shot again. I think between the 2, since I haven't personally been seeing a whole lot of Urza, it's possible Veil of Summer might be the next card to test. Probably Mystical Dispute is going to be the best move. So I could see potentially playing something like this. I'll go ahead and edit it so you don't get the time of me searching all this stuff and putting it together. So, alright, so I've kind of put together just a few changes to the list that you last saw on screen. The first is 3rd Ancient Stirrings, and then we have a 4th Explorer, and we have 2 Mystical Disputes in the sideboard, and that's about it. Again, this is with a 3 TOS build. If I were to change this list to more of a stock list, I think I would trim the Tolaria West and drag one of these Tireless Trackers to the main deck probably and play a 3rd Dispute in the board. I could see something like this being very good as well, but this way you have access to some interaction on the stack against control, so you don't just get like blown out by like a Mana Leak or a Cryptic Command or whatever. You can leave up 1 blue mana in order to fight that axis. And again, adding a Gemstone Mine over this Vesuva would help with that, so you'd have the blue mana to hold up. Otherwise, I could see doing something like this. So the list that I have here is missing a sideboard slot. I'd have to put more thought into what it should be, but I don't necessarily think that more than 2 Veil of Summer would be necessary, so I guess you could just use that as an additional flex slot, perhaps like a 2nd Force of Vigor or something, I don't know. Or you could also just move the 2nd tracker back into the board and have an additional mainboard slot, say for like an Azusa or another Stirrings or something. I could see that too. But yeah, those are the 2 possibilities I would suggest for fighting the control matchups that we had so much trouble against. Again, I don't think that's any particular surprise. After testing, even without the 3rd Tolaria West, I think I do like the mainboard Engineered Explosives, so I would keep that for the time being. But anyways, this is a ton of talking at the end of a video about the deck list. I know that this is the last match in the league, so maybe it's warranted, maybe it's not. Let me know if this is too much discussion on the deck list. I'm definitely interested in fielding your suggestions. No pun intended. But yeah, I also got to get going. I've got a Paper Magic tournament to make it to, so wish me luck, posthumously, of course. And I will see you in the next one real soon. This is Red Face Menace, signing off.